Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. It's Tuesday, and the patch notes for patch 11.16 have been posted, which means it's time for us to once again go through the top 5 changes in this week's patch. Now, this has been a long time coming. Riot took an extra week on this patch to give themselves some time to rest and relax in the middle of the year, which is great, but we are back onto it. And 11.16 has a bunch of really, I think, important and insightful and impactful changes here, so let's go ahead and not waste any more time, hopping, of course, all the way down to the bottom of the patch notes, as I do with our number 5 change, which are the Dark Seal nerfs. Now, Dark Seal for a while has just been a generically good mid lane item, which is sort of at odds with what Dark Seal is supposed to be, right? Dark Seal and Maokai Soul Stealer are very high risk, high reward items that are designed to be useful for players who want to play kind of greedy and maybe get a whole bunch of AP, but have the opportunity to die and then lose all their stacks. But Dark Seal was just so efficient and so forgiving in comparison to Maokai Soul Stealer that most mid laners were buying it, not because they were trying to be greedy, but because it's just that good of a purchase. These nerfs are going to make it more risky to sit on, so not necessarily as risky as going to the full Maokai, but the full Maokai also has more value in being purchased because you can get more stacks. So it's a little bit more comparable to Maokai Soul Stealer, and it gives overall less value, so I hope that this makes it a little bit more of a greedy opt-in rather than a must-have as it currently is. Moving on up to our number 4 changes here, we're going to be talking about Maokai. Now, for a long period of time, top Maokai has been struggling. In support, Maokai, though, has been quite good thanks to the endless poke you can put out with Sapling Toss. So these 2 changes here are designed to both buff up top lane Maokai and also nerf down support Maokai so that doesn't get out of hand thanks to these buffs. The nerfs to Sapling Toss are really not that big. The detonation damage was slightly reduced as per the percent scaling based on AP, so in that regard, it's a little bit worse, but since Maokai did a lot of damage over time and damage based on target's max health anyways, with things like Liandry's Torment and Demonic Embrace, that's not going to change too much, but it is a nice little change that they threw in there to tone that back a little bit. But the biggest thing here are the Sap Magic buffs, as this scales up significantly better than it used to, as now it goes all the way up to a 15% max health heal from a 13%, and it also is a 7% at base, which is a really, really big deal. It also now has breakpoints, which means that you're not going to be dealing with super awkward numbers. Instead, you're going to get very concrete increases in the amount of healing you're going to get. This is a really big change and very nice for Maokai as well, especially top lane Maokai, as it should allow him to both stay in lane a little bit longer and ideally be able to survive and do better things. This isn't going to address all the problems the pick is having right now, but it does at least make it a little bit better. Moving on down to our number 3 change, it's Shaco. Now, these are a couple of bug fixes here on the ultimate in particular that should help him feel a little more tricksy and easier to use on that R. But the biggest thing here is the change to Deceive, where the poof of orange smoke no longer appears when cast through Fog of War. This is a crazy big change, as that little poof was essentially the only counterplay that that ability had, short of Shaco standing on a ward when he goes invis. So not knowing at all that Shaco is here until he either drops a jack-in-the-box at your feet or appears backstabbing you is a huge deal, because remember that Deceive is true invisibility. You literally cannot detect him at all or reveal him unless he steps within tower range or until he's actively doing things, right? Or unless you get lucky with a skill shot and just happen to hit him and be like, oh, okay, Shaco's here. There's no way to see it coming in advance. Riot do say that they want to remove the counterplay being just mousing around the map constantly to look for orange smoke, but I think that that was an important part of his counterplay, and without that being around, Shaco should be a lot more at liberty to go for some greedy and or potentially risky plays, given that opponents can no longer see him coming. This is a really nice change for Shaco players, and he'll definitely be feeling, I think, a lot better when going for the early game plays that he enjoys. Moving on up to the Karma changes. Now, Riot have said that they're trying to nerf down Karma because of how good she is in pro play, but I think that in general, all they're really doing is buffing her, and buffing her in such a way that she will continue to see play in pro. The biggest change here is, of course, the change to Gathering Fire. She can no longer reduce the cooldown of Mantra by auto-attacking enemy champions, but now she gets the full cooldown reduction from her abilities at level 1. Ordinarily, she'd have to wait till level 11 before she gets that full 5-second refund. That means that Karma, who is able to hit skills, will be able to constantly refund her abilities, or constantly refund Mantra, get more Mantra abilities, and therefore get a lot more value out of the early game. And in addition, Riot buffed up the damage on her Q2, Soul Flare, by 15. This is a pretty hefty buff, especially given that this is the first max for Karma, so like, this will really be hitting for a lot more damage, I think, than players are really accustomed to or really going to expect. So that's going to be huge, especially given that you have more Mantras to work with. Now, you might be saying, well, it doesn't matter, though, because her Q is taking some nerfs here as well, right? Well, yes and no. The base damage on her Q was nerfed early. It scales up to the same value, but the cooldown was reduced, and the mana cost was reduced more importantly. This is already a pretty spammable ability that does a lot of damage, and now that it has a lower cooldown and a lower mana cost, Karma is a lot more likely to be able to spam it, and to be able to spam more mantra Qs, because she hits a Q, it refunds the cooldown of mantra, therefore she can fire more mantra Qs and just more mantra Q, or just more Qs in general. So in general, these are huge changes to the usability. She's going to suffer a little bit in the early game. There's a slight amount of missing damage that she has on Inner Flame, but generally speaking, I feel like it is totally worth it given the trade-offs you're getting. E as well, the movement speed was normalized at all levels, but the shield strength was increased. The movement speed bonus on an RE isn't as good as it used to be, but generally speaking, I feel like these changes just make solo lane Karma super, super strong, and I feel like we will continue to see her in coordinated pro play due to how good she's going to be in lane. Finally, moving on to the last change of this week's patch, we're going to be talking about the Sona rework. Now, I already did a full video covering this, so I'm not going to go ahead and break down all the changes, but suffice it to say, right, have removed the stick of Sona's horrendous mana costs, and instead given her the carrot of constantly refunding your ability cooldowns and getting more ability haste if you're able to play well with Sona's abilities and help out your allies. I think it's a super good change for Sona that encourages her to play in a way that makes sense, and also gives her access to making crescendo plays more often, which is her most impactful ability and really the button that you feel best about using when you are playing Sona. So really excited to see how these changes shake out when they go live, and I think it's going to be super impactful for the champion as a whole and will hopefully breathe some life back into her. And that is going to be it for me today, guys. Let me know which changes you're most excited for down in the comment section below. There's even more than the ones I talked about, so definitely make sure you do check out the full patch notes if you're interested. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days like today as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.